Welcome, everybody, to the Yo Kids Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Gargano. This is the podcast that surrounds everything youth sports. So I've covered pro and college sports, the highest level, and I have fallen in love with youth sports. I'm a big believer in sports for children. I just think it's such a great outlet and keeps them out of trouble, they learn so many great life lessons. So as we go forward with the podcast, we're going to be talking to a lot of different people in the world of youth sports. We'll talk to some professional athletes who have children of themselves. We'll talk about the journey of the athlete. We'll highlight some of the terrific youth sports athletes across the Delaware Valley and beyond. But really, we really wanted to try to give some advice to the parents. Listen, if you got a good story, good idea, please, like I said, hit me up and we'll get to it. Yo Kids Sports Podcast. And don't forget, our Yo Kids Sports Podcast is presented by Primo Hoagies. Listen, know what I've always said for years and years and years. It's not just a hoagie, it's a Primo. And this fall, whether you're tailgating, football, soccer, it's youth, you name it, make sure you got your Primo Hoagie party tray. Nothing like it for the big game. And speaking of football and the big game, this fall we're giving away a trip to Vegas to see the very big game to one very lucky, very deserving coach. So if you know a youth coach that you think deserves recognition for their outstanding dedication and passion, make your nominations today. PrimoHoagies.com. You can go directly mvc.primohoagies.com. Our most valuable coach promotion here at Primos. I love it. We got to shine some love, give some love to these youth coaches that spend their time, many of whom just getting an earful and no compensation. So they're the best. Nominate your favorite coach. Again, it's the Primo Hoagies most valuable coach contest. I love it. I think it's great. And who knows, maybe they'll get to see the birds at the big game. Wouldn't that be something? I am so thrilled for our next guest. I love him, dear friend, but an incredible basketball coach, knows all about youth. His camps are renowned. Like any person in South Jersey who's a basketball player has played at the Legler camp. Trust me on this. The great Tim Legler, ESPN NBA analyst, joins us. Legs, you had a long journey today, buddy.
And what's up, man? Listen, you know I love you when I'm coming on after 11-hour drive, brother, and doing this with you. I did. Made my twice a year trip that I have to make from my house in South Jersey down to Florida. So I'm down here for a little bit.
That's awesome. And we thank, and listen, it was very important for me to have you on this because I think you're an expert. Obviously, you're an expert in basketball, but you're an expert in coaching and an expert when it comes to kids. And let's start off with your camp and, what the impact that you make when it comes to youth basketball especially in this region.
Yeah, so I moved into the South Jersey area 16 years ago. Was living in the city. I got married, moved out to the burbs, and immediately kind of wanted to entrench myself in the community. So one of the first things I did was reach out to, some of the local gyms, local high schools, and say, hey, I had moved into the area. I was looking to start a basketball camp, and that's kind of where it began. It's funny when you first are trying to get it going, and you have to do everything it takes, like drive around, stuff mailboxes with brochures. Like you got to do everything to get the word out. So very proud of it, man. We started the first year with about maybe 65 kids, and now we're at like 320 and shutting down registration every year, a couple weeks out. We sell it out every year now. So I'm really proud of what it's become. We've changed facilities 2 different times, and now we're over at Total Turf in Pittman, which has got 5 courts under one roof. So I can't ask for any more than that. But it's my favorite week of the year. I look forward to it unlike any other week. I love working with the little ones and getting players and making them understand what it's going to take to get better. Not everybody's going to end up being a great player. Some kids come, they've never played before. And I want to make sure they learn the absolute building blocks on the things that they need to work on. If they fall in love with the game and get a bug for it, these are the kinds of things that you're going to need to do if you really want to become a player. And my goal with the whole thing, I tell the kids first day every year, is I just want them to love it more when they leave the last day than they did when they walked in the door on Monday morning. If they do that, they love the game more, they work at it. So that's my job, my staff's job. Make sure they fall in love with it just a little bit more. And in some cases, kids fall in love with it a lot more. Every year I get letters from parents saying their kid caught the bug for the game that week, and now they can't get him inside from the driveway because all they want to do is shoot and work on their handling. So those are the best letters to get, best emails to get.
Oh, that's beautiful. When you introduce kids to the game, because we forget sometimes that they're children, right? Like that, and here you are as a coach that can, listen, you could coach the elite of the NBA, let alone kids. And so where do you begin with the building blocks of basketball?
It always is going to start with footwork. Like when you start talking about the building blocks, particularly with beginners and young players, because I have kids as young as 7 come to my camp. So technically ages are 8 to 16. We always get a handful of 7-year-olds that ask if they can come, and they come. So we're 7 years old starting out. If they don't have the basic concepts of being able to pivot, to be able to change directions with their feet, to be able to stay on balance with their feet, if they can't kind of grasp that, then you're really kind of stuck in the mud. That's the first thing. And then I always tell players, the young players, and I wish someone had told me this when I was growing up, that ball handling is probably the most important thing you need to master when you're 8, 9, 10 years old. Because you get to the point when you're 13, 14, 15, and you haven't worked on your handle a lot, it gets very difficult to add it then. Not saying you can't. If you got an addiction for the game like I did, and you have this maniacal, obsessive work ethic, you can do anything. But it enables you to be able to escape on the court and be able to just do more things, and more things and more places on the court are open to you if you can master manipulating the basketball with either hand, rather than just focusing on shooting all the time, because most kids, they just want to work on their shooting all the time. And I think handle at a younger age, far more important. If you really want to catch a coach's eye, show off a handle that can change directions, go either direction, either hand, escape traffic, those kinds of things. You're going to look like a more advanced player right away. And then the shooting, that can come after that. But I would advise most young players, find some good ball handling drills online. There's more access to it than I certainly ever had because of what you can find on social media, and start mastering some of those drills that you see guys do, because it just makes you a better player. There's more options to you on the court.
Yeah, it's funny because when you think about being trapped, right? So I coach my St. Margaret's 5th grade basketball, right? So, we'll run our little.
I had some of your players roll through my camp this summer. They were telling me about Coach Ant, and I was hearing about that.
I love it. And of course, I told them they have to go to the Tim Legler basketball camp, right? Because I expect
they said it. Yeah, they told me.
I want you to grow. I want you to grow. And it's funny because, listen, we learned about it that age when, you start to press a little bit, you start to be able to extend your defense. Like I would run a top matchup zone, and I had them attack the basketball and collapse the basketball. A kid that can handle the ball can defeat that easily, right? Like most kids don't know how to handle the basketball. So I think you're spot on. I mean, that's like the basic of the game.
Yeah, definitely. Because you think about it, and most young players, and probably 95% of the kids that come through camp are right-handed. Yeah. So most of those young players, you know what they're going to do? They're going to get it, they're going to put it down, and they're going to go right to the right corner because they get going. Yes. And number one, they don't even really know the concept of like how to stop properly without traveling. So and they're afraid of getting trapped. They're afraid of someone taking the ball. So the one thing they can do is put that ball in their right hand and look at it and just dribble right to the right corner. And then they run out of real estate because the baseline's there, and they pick it up, and invariably it ends up in a turnover. So, if you're trying to make a team, you're trying to make a youth team, a travel team, you're trying to make a middle school basketball team, where we all begin. If you are one of those kids that can show coaches, you can be dribbling up one side of the floor and see that you're going to be running into some traffic on that side, or the kid guarding you cuts you off. And now you can change directions and get the ball to your left hand and get it back to the middle of the floor. You're just a more advanced player. The game is easier for you because even passes become easier because now everything's available because you can take the ball where you need to deliver the ball to the open person. So it's just very, very important. And it's probably one area of the game most kids don't want to work on. They want to shoot all the time. And the handle part of it is more of like real work and a grind. And you're not seeing the success of the ball going through the hoop. Like that's instant gratification when you shoot, but you get that reward of making baskets. I mean, I got a 21-month-old now. He's starting out and he even gets it. He makes a bucket and turns and starts clapping for himself, So it's like we all get that gratification. The ball handling work you put in it's not gratifying to do it, right? It's just work. The ball's not going up on the rim. So it's really separates you. How bad do you want to do it? And like I said, the great thing about living in this era now, this generation, is just the access that they have to elite level training without ever meeting these people. Just go online and look at some of these amazing drills that these guys have come up with. It's incredible, right? And I've sat there at the Curry camp because I've gone out there and coached at his All-American camp, and he'll invariably that week do a workout, one of his normal Steph Curry workouts. And, people are just lining the court to watch this guy work out. And it's fascinating to watch a guy on that level still start out his workouts with the basic building block type stuff that we're talking about, the basics to get his body into rhythm before he starts doing the elite level stuff that only, Steph Curry can do.
Let's tackle shooting real quick because the explosion of the three, I watch kids and, they're 7, 8, 9, 10 years old and they're bombing threes. Like it's amazing. Like what the three has done, and every kid from middle school to your point to high school, they're all just jacking up threes.
Yeah, the game has changed in that way. I mean, even, you go watch an AAU tournament, so you're talking about high-level players that are going to be Division I players, and it's the number of threes taken in the games relative to even 10 years ago. It's really mind-blowing, and that's really because of Curry. He's changed the way offenses think about attacking and scoring and spacing and all those things. So, yeah, everybody, unfortunately, though, I do have a little bit of a pet peeve with it because I think too many below average shooters have the green light. And I think that's when sometimes it can look ugly because and that's where I think a lot of even the NBA, I'll say the same thing about the NBA, Anthony. It's like there are too many guys that are 34% 3-point shooters that shoot the ball whatever they want to, so I think the standards in terms of who is considered a great 3-point shooter have lowered a little bit because more guys are shooting them and the percentages aren't there necessarily to justify it because that's the nature of the game now. That's what teams are trying to accomplish. That's what offenses are looking for. And kids know it because those are the guys that are getting all the attention. So now they're the ones that when they play, they want to do the same thing. So all I would advise kids is it's great that it's a part of the game and you certainly need it. Particularly if you're a perimeter player and you're a youth player, you're going to need to add that to your game because that's where the game has gone. But I highly advise you to try to perfect your mechanics, your balance, your release, your timing at 15 feet, 16 feet. And I always tell people that, when I give my shooting demonstration at my camp, if you can't consistently make 7 out of 10 shots from any spot on the floor unguarded in a practice session. And I don't mean like one time I made 7 out of 10. Now I can back up 3 feet. I'm talking about today, I was working on 15 footers and I did it from 10 spots on the floor. And I did each of those. I did that 5 times each. And then tomorrow I did it again. And I did it again for 3 months. And then I backed up a couple of feet because if you can't make 7 out of 10 unguarded, you are, there's no reason for you to be backing up when you're practicing. if that shot is not consistently going through at that rate. So that is kind of how you build out, when you do it and you're learning how to shoot. Unfortunately, just take a look at a lot of kids. They come into a gym, they'll go grab a ball, they'll shoot a few layups to get loose, and then within 5-10 shots, they're out shooting 24-foot jumpers.
Yes.
And so that process, and if you watch great players, go watch a guy like Curry, since we're on him, go watch him before a game and get there an hour and a half before the game and watch where he starts out shooting. He's inside of 10 feet for probably 50 to 75 shots. He takes inside of 10 feet. And this is the greatest shooter that's ever lived. And he doesn't start immediately because your body has muscle memory and it's stacked on top of each other from distances. And it's just the way you have to go about it in building out. Now, listen, don't get me wrong. In a game, you're open, you're going to take a 3-point shot. I get that.
Right.
What I'm saying is over time, you should start to shoot better percentages in your games if you are adopting the 70% rule in practices at closer distances. You are going to start to then find more consistency in the games than if you're not practicing that shot enough, not having enough success enough.
I got a great one. All right. A guy who is an incredible dad, an incredible football coach. And oh, by the way, he has 3 Super Bowl rings with Tom Brady and Peyton Manning. I don't know where you're going to get that. And his dad, by the way, is a Hall of Famer. All right. Tell me that's not a resume. My dear friend, Dan Klecko, joins us. Danny.
Hey, buddy. I'm so happy to be on. Hey, look, I got blessed. I got good kids. I had a dad that raised me right, and I got lucky to play in the NFL, man. So, God's looking out for me.
I don't think there's anything about luck involved. Knowing the basis of football, and let's get right into it, because the basis of football is hard work. And as long as I've known you, Temple, right, NFL, you've always been a guy that just is a worker.
Right. And look, football is the ultimate. Hey, if you give effort, like, you're playing baseball, you got to be taking 1,000 cuts a week. You're shooting basketballs if you're playing basketball, right? Soccer, you got to have a ball in your foot. Football is the ultimate. Hey, look, if you give effort, right, and you give everything you got and you work hard in the off season, it's that one you can catch up to, pretty much quicker than any other sport. But it is, man, it's, no matter what these kids think, how good they are in Little South Jersey or Philadelphia, there's a million kids all over the United States putting in just as much work and working just as hard. I mean, it is it's the root of the sport for sure.
I want to get into your journey compared to your dad's journey, compared to Nate's journey. So for the audience, Danny has a son, Nate. First of all, he's got an army of children who are beautiful kids, but he coaches his son, Nate, who is a terrific player, freshman at Paul VI High School in South Jersey. And you coach, you help, you're on that staff. And you've kind of seen it all from dad to you to now Nate. Let's talk about just the differences first.
Sure. I mean, for me, it was, my dad was never involved. I mean, he always taught me, right? I mean, he'd have hand signals for me in the stands and I'd look up at him. But for whatever reason, I won't get into it. I'm not sure, but my coaching staff in high school never wanted him around. I don't know if they felt threatened or whatever it was. After my sophomore year, my head coach left and he went somewhere else. And my junior and senior year, the head coach just didn't want him around. And I'm not sure why they would take it out on me. So look, he'd coach me, he'd teach me things, but he was never involved. With Nate, at Paul VI there, I'm involved, right? Even his last 2 years at Clearview, I wanted him to have a good base of knowledge and understanding of the game while I was around before I threw him into the fire. Because again, it is a sport you can get hurt easily. And it's a sport you can get bad habits in real quick, right? Look, our coach, I'm blessed. Our coach at Paul VI is a great staff. I don't think they need me there. I love being there and I love that they have me. But a lot of these coaches don't know what they're coaching. They don't know how to teach the fundamentals. They're more worried about winning, right? And getting a jacket or getting a ring, at 7th and 8th grade, where it really doesn't mean anything, right? It doesn't. Teaching them how to be a good sportsman. Like I said, the good fundamentals, the hustle, the working hard. Those are the things that will carry you through high school. And if you're blessed enough to play in college, or maybe even after that, it all sets up in 7th and 8th grade with the and earlier, and even in high school with the good habits, with the learning how to train, with the mentality of football, right? That's where it all stems from. And so I wanted to be there for Nate to teach him those fundamentals, and just luckily he's been able to succeed and have a little bit of success so far.
And don't forget, our Yo Kids Sports podcast is presented by Primo Hoagies. Listen, know what I've always said for years and years and years. It's not just a hoagie, it's a Primo. And this fall, whether you're tailgating, football, soccer, it's youth, you name it, make sure you got your Primo Hoagie party tray. Nothing like it for the big game. And speaking of football and the big game, this fall we're giving away a trip to Vegas to see the very big game to one very lucky, very deserving coach. So if you know a youth coach that you think deserves recognition for their outstanding dedication and passion, make your nominations today. PrimoHoagies.com. You can go directly mvc.primohoagies.com. Our most valuable coach promotion here at Primos. I love it. We got to shine some love, give some love to these youth coaches that spend their time, many of whom just getting an earful and no compensation. So they're the best. Nominate your favorite coach. Again, it's the Primo Hoagies most valuable coach contest. I love it. I think it's great. And who knows, maybe they'll get to see the birds at the big game. Wouldn't that be something?
It's interesting. You brought up something that I so spot on. We get so caught up in wins and losses.
Yeah.
And look, we all want to win. We're competitive people.
Right.
But, whether they're sophomores at 10 and 11 years old, or whether they're in 7th and 8th grade, high school's a little different. But
right, I agree. Yeah.
When you're going up through the ranks, wins and losses, are you kidding me? Teach the game, coach, right?
Right. You're absolutely right. Look, ultimately you want to teach them the win as well, right? You got, hey, those tough moments. How do you gut it out? How do you stand up? How do you get your back up and get tough? You have to teach that as well. But at the end of the day, look, no one's going to remember that Clearview football lost to Glassboro 2 years ago in 7th grade football. No one's going to remember that, right? But I'm going to remember how, me as a coach, I'm going to remember how you reacted when you were down 40-0. I'm going to remember how, what your attitude was, what your body language was. Did you pick your teammates up, or did you say, oh man, you guys suck and we can't win? How did you treat those moments? Because they're going to happen again. Trust me, I've looked up at the scoreboard. We played Virginia Tech my freshman year, and it was Michael Vick's coming out game. And it's 62-7, right? Don't look at the scoreboard, right? Don't look at the scoreboard. Beat the man in front of you, win your little individual battles, and the rest will take care of itself.
What is your, when we talk about these coaches, because I saw it earlier this year where a team was winning 30-0. It was right before halftime. And there's a rule that right before, as soon as it's 30, 28 points or whatever it is.
When you're up by 28, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, they scored to make it 27-0.
Yeah.
They missed the extra point on purpose. So once you get to 28-0, you can't throw, right? So these guys missed the extra point on purpose so they can then throw the football.
That's ignorant,
what are we doing?
Right. What are you teaching? What are you coaching? Right. Hey, if you're that good, right? Well, here, now we're going to work on our run game, right? If that's how you want to treat it, you want to treat it as, hey, now we're going to teach our kids some things, teach them how to run the ball, right? That's just ignorant. When coaches do things like that, when I see stuff like that, taking timeouts to run up the score, having vendettas against the other coach or the other parents, so you're going to take it out on the kids, man, they're 10 through 12 years old, 13 years old. What the hell are you doing to them, right? You're demoralizing them. You're teaching them to hate the game we all love, the game we grew up watching. And that's just, to me, those coaches should be fined or suspended when they do stuff like that.
And that's my biggest beef is you're teaching, you're going to have kids not like it for
Right.
what? Like, what? Like, there's no in this sport, and you can talk to it better than anybody. The disparity sometimes, like if you got a big line, right, or if you got some athletes, you're just going to overpower these teams.
Right. Hey, look, at that age, one kid can make a difference, right? One kid can absolutely take over a game. It's now again when you get into high school, it's different. And
Right.
look, I've seen kids take over games in high school too. But seventh, eighth grade, sixth, seventh, and eighth grade, you got one real stud. Just give him some room, and he's gone. Right. Like when you get to those points in that game, take those kids out, let the other kids play. Right. But these coaches, I mean, the way they recruit and the way they try to get their teams together. It's just it's sad, right? Because it's not football and it's not what it's going to be when those kids get older and those kids are just used to dominating. Now they're in a disadvantage.
I know, it's amazing. It's amazing. I'm getting attacked by my dog right now. So we just got a puppy.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So the puppy busted into the office.
That's what makes a great podcast, though. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. You're right.
Don't worry, mine will bark. Mine's sitting right there. It'll bark in 5 minutes or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. I guess what really bothers me sometimes is, I don't know why football. It seems to be more egregious in football than any other sport, and I don't know what that is. I mean, we ran into a situation last week where it was 16-6. The other team's got the ball, 2 minutes to go. And it was like a minute and a half.
Yeah.
Just kneel on the ball, like run the ball. You don't even have to kneel
just
down.
Run a couple dives, right? Let's get out of here, right? Yeah.
They were calling timeout and throwing down the field, like,
right.
and then what happens is there's jawing back and forth from the sidelines, and then people started to argue and they started to meet it midfield, and that's where bad stuff can happen.
Right.
And the worst thing about what we're doing here is we want to make sure that the adults remain adults and stuff like that gets out of control quickly.
Right. Look, football is and I'll never compare football to war or gladiators that used to kill each other in an arena. But in today's world, football is the closest thing to a gladiator sport, right? It is. It's you go out there and you try to literally fist fight the other guy for 60 minutes or whatever it is, 48 minutes when they're little, and I think we lose sight of those are our babies out there, right? Those are our look, my Thomas, my littlest one, he goes out there, he plays soccer, lacrosse, and it's crazy. Some of the stuff you hear the parents say, don't take that, hit him in the face, hit him, and you're like, man, my man's going to get home and he's going to watch SpongeBob. Like, like we lose sight of the fact that they're babies and we project our anger and we project our preconceived notions of what they should be doing out onto the field. And that's when you see these parents yelling and screaming. Hey, look, I get it. It's an emotional sport. It's, any sport is emotional, but especially football, because it is physical. It is, like I said, it's a fist fight for however long. So I get it, right? There are times you're going to let the emotions get the best of you, but you got to remember at the end of the day, hey, look, those are just kids out there, man. None of this is going to mean anything. If they're blessed enough to even play in college, that's a huge, just a huge win, right? These kids aren't going to the NFL, right? And if they do, awesome, right? And that was good for them. But remember that, like, look, I've gotten caught up, right? I've done dumb stuff out on the sideline. Of course I have, right? Like, you almost, get pulled back into the NFL or college or when I was in high school and you'll chirp and say something stupid and you're like, shut up. Like, why did I do that, right? But at the end of the game, I'm going to walk up to the other coach, the other fan, and say, "Great job! You had a great team. Good luck. Great, stay healthy." That's what it needs to be at the end of the game.
Welcome everybody to the Yo Kids Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Gargano. This is the podcast that surrounds everything youth sports. So I've covered pro and college sports, the highest level, and I have fallen in love with youth sports. I'm a big believer in sports for children. I just think it's such a great outlet and keeps them out of trouble, they learn so many great life lessons. So as we go forward with the podcast, we're going to be talking to a lot of different people in the world of youth sports. We'll talk to some professional athletes who have children of themselves. We'll talk about the journey of the athlete. We'll highlight some of the terrific youth sports athletes across the Delaware Valley and beyond. But really, we really wanted to try to give some advice to the parents. Listen, if you got a good story, good idea, please, like I said, hit me up and we'll get to Yo Kids Sports Podcast.
Welcome to another episode of the Yo Kids Sports Podcast. I love this right now. I have, like, you want to talk about kid athlete royalty? I got 3 of the best young hockey players out there right now. And they all happen to be from Philadelphia area, which I'm so proud of them. I got to introduce you guys. In your at your far left is my man Josh Player, who's a New Hampshire commit. He's playing in Green Bay right now for the Ramblers. To my right is my man Andrew Centrella. Andrew plays at Providence, and he's 19, stud, also Youngstown. And of course, to my bottom left, I mean, all these guys are like family to me. And of course, that would be Vinny Borghese. Vinny plays at Northeastern. He's 19, and of course, he's repped, Team USA a couple of times. I mean, these kids are studs, and I thought you guys would be perfect to give advice to young athletes and talk about your journey. Vinny, I'm going to start with you. You and I, very close. Full disclosure, your parents are dear friends of mine. I followed you and Andrew's journey, for a long time. I followed Josh's journey through my dear friend Michelle, and it's been an awesome time. Give me did you ever think that, you would be here? Is this a calling for you, Vin?
I mean, I never really thought about it. I mean, obviously we started super young. Me and Ange, probably the age of 3. We started on figure skating in Voorhees. So, me and him have been through it since, 3 years old. We've, started together, and obviously, when it came to like 13, 14 years old, and, we were still in the same team, and dads were driving us to practice 3-4 times a week. And it started to get competitive and stuff. Like, that's kind of when we thought, like, hey, like maybe, we do have a chance to play Division I college hockey. And then, that year ended, and, a lot of stuff fell into place for both of us. And like you said, our parents couldn't be happier for us. But like, coming up, I just, it's something you don't really think about. You know what I mean? Like, when dad and, drive me to practice, taking me to lessons and stuff as such a young kid. And, sometimes, I mean, like I said, it just fell into place for me. I think, obviously it took a lot of hard work and a lot of dedication, obviously thanks to my dad and my mom. But like, I think growing up, you don't really think about that stuff. You just try to have fun, enjoy every second of it. And then, once you become a teenager and stuff, that's when it starts to get serious. And then, maybe you do have the opportunity to like take a step further and stuff. So, that's all like I really have for that. I think, just at such a young age, my answer is no. I didn't really think I'd make it this far, but, obviously I'm here today, and, I'm proud of everything that I've done myself and stuff. So
it's so cool. I mean, think about it. You wore the USA jersey. I mean, your uncle, who's never been on an airplane other than a couple of private jets, never been out of the country, goes to see you in the Junior Olympics. I mean, it was unbelievable experience for you to represent Team USA. It was 19U, right?
So that was in 2019. I was a U15. I was 15 years old. That's obviously something that I was fortunate enough to get picked for and go overseas and play for the country and stuff. But that was a great experience. I think it stems from hard work and stuff. Having that opportunity to play for your country is obviously a really good feeling and stuff. But it was a great experience for me, my family, my uncle. He's a diehard fan. He loves everything that I do. So for him to come out there for me is definitely something that I'll remember for a long time. Obviously, like you said, he's never really been on an airplane or anything. He doesn't really travel much, but for him to have that opportunity and see me play on a stage that's pretty big, I think, it's definitely something that'll sit with him and me for a long time. So
And don't forget, our Yo Kids Sports podcast is presented by Primo Hoagies. Listen, know what I've always said for years and years and years. It's not just a hoagie, it's a Primo. And this fall, whether you're tailgating, football, soccer, it's youth, you name it, make sure you got your Primo Hoagie party tray. Nothing like it for the big game. And speaking of football and the big game, this fall, we're giving away a trip to Vegas to see the very big game to one very lucky, very deserving coach. So if you know a youth coach that you think deserves recognition for their outstanding dedication and passion, make your nominations today. PrimoHoagies.com. You can go directly mvc.primohoagies.com. Our most valuable coach promotion here at Primos. I love it. We got to shine some love, give some love to these youth coaches that spend their time, many of whom just getting an earful and no compensation. So they're the best. Nominate your favorite coach. Again, it's the Primo Hoagies most valuable coach contest. I love it. I think it's great. And who knows, maybe they'll get to see the birds at the big game. Wouldn't that be something?
I mean, I think that's one of the gifts of, where you guys have achieved. And, you guys are still, so young, and you have still a lot more. I mean, Josh, your mom and your aunt talk about you all the time. Like, I get all kinds of updates about you. Tell us about your journey, Josh.
Yeah, well, I grew up with these two guys, played with my brother for like their whole careers. When his dad was coaching my brother, so like kind of seeing that they were able to do it kind of like showed me that like if I take this serious that I could get to the same spots, and it's all kind of worked out the same way for me, which I'm grateful too. It just takes a lot of hard work and dedication every day.
Well, that's the other thing. Did you give up a lot? We all see, as sports fans, and we all see the glamour that comes with big time hockey and big time basketball, baseball, the whole thing. But the hours that you guys put in, I mean, Andrew, think about you as a child, your whole entire childhood that you spent in a rink. I mean, the hours that other kids are playing video games and doing things, you gave it all up to get where you're at.
Oh yeah, countless amount of hours. I mean, we missed out on a lot of opportunities and stuff, like a lot of fun with our friends and stuff. But it's all for the better. It put us in a great spot where we are today, and I wouldn't regret it. So.
And that's the one thing about the sacrifice that I think young athletes need to really kind of understand. And look, at some point, you guys realize that, all right, like, I think I can do something here, and maybe I can get an education and get it paid for and really kind of set up my life. And I think, that's where Vin, you probably said, look, I love the game and it's an opportunity. So I want to go full bore and, really devote all my time to it.
Exactly. I think, obviously, like you said, you miss out on a lot of things growing up. And then you also said about, maybe I can get an education and stuff out of this. For me, it was just, I really fell in love with the game like pretty early. I think probably earlier than a lot of kids, do playing hockey. And then I also went away pretty early. I went away after my freshman year of high school. So talking about missing out on things, I've never been to a dance. I've never been to a prom. I've never been to, all the after parties with my friends and stuff. That stuff is kind of just, I've never been a part of it. And, it becomes norm after a bit. And that's kind of the kind of stuff, just for me about like missing out on stuff where, I kind of do regret not going to a prom and stuff. But at the end of the day, like, it's worth it, right? Like I said, after you miss a couple things and you kind of get used to it, and, it does suck the first couple of times. But, when you have goals and you have, you're seeing your future and stuff, I think that's something you definitely can put into perspective. And, when you're missing those things, you kind of say to yourself, like, hey, like, that's when you start talking to yourself and saying, like, I can't go to these things. Like, that's my life now. So, that's kind of where I was at, as a young kid. And then, obviously playing junior and then getting to college, that's kind of like when your life kind of starts, your social life and stuff, and you have friends and you go out and stuff, and that's kind of like where it comes into full circle, and you're like, hey, when I was a kid, like all this stuff, like it was worth it, now that I made it to here, and now that, I have a bunch of friends now in college, and, I made a lot of friends in junior, like all that stuff as a kid, when I missed all that stuff, it's all worth it. So I think that's definitely something for like a young kid to, maybe going away to school or, playing hockey, and, you have a tournament, and, your friends are having a sleepover or party. Like it's worth it, man. Like you just, you get through that stuff, and, it becomes norm after a while. So
Andrew, how old were you when you first went away?
I was, I think going in my junior year, I went to Northwood Prep School up in Lake Placid. It was kind of the same thing. Like, I was missing out a ton, but, it was all worth it. I made a bunch of friends up there, and then, I had the opportunity to go to juniors as well. And yeah, so been living away since.
It was kind of cool because at one point you guys were both in Nebraska, right? One of you guys was in Omaha, the other guy was in Tri-Cities, right?
Yeah, I was in Omaha. He was in Tri-City. He was there a year before me, and then I kind of went up. I got called up in the end of my junior year, so I had a good opportunity there. And yeah, we played against each other. We took a nice picture. So it was kind of nice.
Well, it was cool. Like two kids from South Philly wind up playing against each other in Nebraska. I love that story.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was a great experience.
What was it like, Josh? Tell me about your travels, Josh. Like and at your young age, when you're playing this kind of competitive hockey, you're away from home. I mean, that's part of the whole thing. You're in Green Bay, and while other kids your age are doing their thing, you're playing hockey in Green Bay.
Yeah, well, like some of these guys, I went up to Rochester, New York, my sophomore year of high school. Like same thing. I know my mom's not very happy that I never went to a prom or any dances like that, but and now just out here, like same thing. Like you just meet so many like great friends and stuff that will be like some of my best friends for the rest of my life. That like if I didn't have this opportunity, like no matter what happens with hockey, like these are guys that I'll be talking to the rest of my life. That it's just a unique opportunity that like I would never pass up or regret at all.
I guess if you don't know it, Josh, like I guess this is just part of the process, right? I guess if you just look at it like, hey, this is what I do. I love hockey. I love this sport. And, wherever I can go to further my career, I'm just going to do it.
Yeah, you don't really like second guess in it, especially when you're out here, you're surrounded by guys doing the same thing, and you don't even realize till you get back home and hanging out with, your other friends that kind of look at you like you're doing something crazy. But when you're around all these guys, it's kind of like just a normal for us and all we've ever known.
Ben, what was it like for you when you're living with a host city, a host family, I should say? And, I've talked to mom and dad about this, and like they were worried sick, right? Like, so dad said I had to go out and check the people out. And then, I had to make sure, like one time you were sick and your mom was like freaking out. Because I can, tell you, I got two kids and I would be the same exact way as your mom and dad.
exactly. So when I went away for the first time at school and stuff, I was in a dorm, obviously, and then they had all facilities there, like for doctors and stuff, and everything was kind of taken care of. When I played junior, I was a young kid. I was 16 years old, and dad's not very good with letting me go, and especially in the middle of the country. Like I think, it's probably the worst I've seen him. When he left. So like, I knew for sure my parents would come out with me right away, and they came out, and I got super lucky because obviously Kearney, Nebraska is probably not the best spot in the country, but it's a great spot to play hockey, and there's a lot of diehard fans and stuff. But to the Bill family and the host family, like I got super lucky. The Bernou family, they are the best people in the world. They had a great house. I would had the whole basement to myself, big room. They cooked every night. They're great people. They have a daughter, a couple dogs, and their family with me for the rest of my life. I talk to them, probably two times a week, like once every 2 weeks. So it's just like, we keep in touch all the time. And, I've known a lot of people that have bad experiences too with Bill families. So like, you know, it's not an easy thing, obviously, when you're a kid and stuff. But for me, I'm super fortunate. I got super lucky to um, be stuck or have great people in my hands in Kearney, Nebraska, right? So as soon as we came to the house, mom and dad, we met her, Ashley, who's the mom there, and you know, right away I just knew I was in great hands. She came in, great welcome, and then, you know, all of a sudden 2, 3 weeks in, it's like my new home, right? So like that's something that, you know, people are worried about too when they're going away and playing juniors, like, oh, I go to this house and I don't know what's going on, blah blah blah. But you know, it's great. I mean, you know, I'm blessed to have that experience and those people, and you know, I was in their hands for 2 years, and they were nothing but the best to me. So, yeah,
That's awesome. That's a great story.
yeah,
You miss your, I know you probably missed your mother's pasta though.
100%, 100%.
Isn't that right, Andrew?
Oh,
It's
it's no
one thing you
joke.
miss from
It's no
home.
joke. Yeah, you don't know until you leave, and then you're like, oh, where's my mother's, like, you know, my mother's meals. So, yeah,
Where did you where did you, same thing? How
yeah,
did it go for you? How was that whole process of living with strangers? I mean, you know, you're entrusted, you're young, you know, and it's not mom and dad who would do anything for you.
yeah, right. I mean, I kind of did the same thing. I lived in a dorm at first, so it was kind of like a little bit different. I was living with a roommate, and then I got called up for juniors. I was kind of jumping around a little bit. Like they kept putting me in different billet houses, so I couldn't really get set and secure. So it was kind of a tough adjustment for me, but it kind of worked out for me at the end. I had a great billet family. They were awesome. They cooked great meals. Had 2 kids, 2 dogs. So they kind of made it really feel like home. Um, and I kind of wouldn't change it for anything. I mean, they were awesome. I still keep in contact with them, always checking in on me. So yeah, they were awesome to me and best people.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Josh, what's been your experience with that? And then also, you know, seeing the world and meeting all these different people, you know, which is a gift that you guys got. Like this gift, and you'll realize this when you get old, like me, about what a gift that this whole thing has given you.
Yeah, my billets like same story as only I'm like their first ever player, and I was definitely really scared coming up here last year. But I mean, I couldn't have asked for anything better. I got the whole basement down here to myself. Just a mom and a dad, Leslie and Jeff, or not. They have no kids, but just 2 dogs, and they treat me and my roommate like as their own. They cook dinner every night, and then just like coming out here, I've gotten to go to Lambeau Field, see some Packers games, and other cool experiences that I'd never be able to do if I didn't decide to do this, it's been great.
It's my pleasure, Yo Kid Sports, to welcome one of the great athletes, great inspirations, and a dear friend who I admire, who's an amazing athlete, an amazing mom now. Heather Mitz, 3-time gold medal winner, USA Women's Soccer. Heather, what's going on?
Oh, just another day in the life of a busy mom. I think it's awesome that you're doing this, and it's so good to see you. It's been way too long, so thanks for having me on.
So, just life. I just want to catch up before we get into some philosophies, and you as a great athlete, now being a sports mom first, but also a sports mom. How's that transition? And tell me about the kids and their engagement into athletics.
Yeah, I will say at first it was a tough transition for me, tougher than I thought it was going to be, from playing sports and then to everything else, retiring. But I will say that just becoming a mom, it gave me a new focus and a new passion, and there's no job that I would rather have in this world. So I'm just really kind of diving in and trying to be the best that I can possibly be for them. And I think from a sports perspective, we didn't push any of them. I have an 8-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 3-year-old. My 3-year-old is just now starting to play for the first time. But, I know a lot of people just shove kids into like every sport imaginable. And that's pretty much what happened with me. But I kind of waited till he showed a little bit more interest because I just wanted them to enjoy it and want to play. I don't know if that's right or wrong, but Connor, my oldest, he now plays soccer pretty much full year. We do
Wow.
flag football. It's crazy, like just how fast, like the requirements. I'm not crazy about it,
Yeah.
so we can talk about that later. But he does flag football, which he absolutely loves. He does baseball and trying to think where golf. So a couple of different sports. I feel like I'm missing basketball also. So he's really involved. He stays busy. He loves it. He has so much fun. My daughter is primarily just soccer and gymnastics. So she in basketball. She played in her first basketball game today, actually.
Oh, terrific.
Yeah, and it was so fun and just funny too. Like it's hilarious watching your kids play and the things that they do. And then some things it's just like a natural thing that they pick up. And then other things it's just like it's so funny watching them just like learn and grow and try to figure it out on their own.
It's cool because, you were an elite athlete at the highest level. Your husband, AJ Feely, a pro NFL quarterback. So it's in the genes. Do you see the kids? Do they have a natural inclination? Like, do they kind of gravitate towards sport?
Now, Connor really didn't show much interest. And like I said, like I didn't force him. And we used to
Right.
joke, we're like, he might be in the band. Who knows? Like, as long as he like loves what he's doing, then he's gonna do whatever he wants. And I'm sure he's gonna love it. And my parents always just kind of let us figure out what we wanted to do. And I think that's really important to have the support no matter what, even if it's a sport that you don't know anything about and you really don't want them to play. But if you love something, then your kid's going to want to do it and they're going to be the best they can possibly be rather than being forced.
How is your career impacted them when it comes to soccer? I mean, you're in many ways a pioneer. We think about women's soccer and how incredible the run has been. You're at the forefront of that.
I still don't really feel like my kids can grasp, the fact that they've seen some old games and be like, oh, mommy, but I don't think they really quite understand, which is great. I think it's great. We prefer it that way. That way they can decide rather than feeling like they need to play a certain sport because mommy or daddy played that. It's funny because I didn't want Connor playing football. I didn't. And of course, he played flag last year. And now football is like all he wants to do.
Really? Oh, that's fabulous.
Of course. But it's just funny because now it's like freezing cold outside. And every day he's like, Mom, Dad, go outside and play with me. And we're like, all right, bud. So he really loves it. And we'll see what happens. I mean, who knows?
It's funny because my oldest, Anthony, my wife Tamara, she did not want him to play football, and he's a big boy. And I said, listen, I mean, he's big. I mean, give it a shot. Let's see what happens. And she grew to say, guess what? It had a wonderful impact on him. We saw his body change. He's now 12. He started when he was 11, and we've seen him get confident and walk differently. And she actually has been converted to a football mom, somewhat.
Yeah, I mean, you can't help it. I mean, obviously, like, you gotta let them choose. And, once they're there, then it's like, you just gotta support them. Because, I mean, who knows? Tomorrow you could be like, I don't want to play anymore.
Right.
Kids give up sports so easily these days that that's why you want to make it fun for them. So it's enjoyable and you don't want to get them burnt out. I actually got burnt out.
Well, I want to ask you about your journey. I mean, to reach the apex where you reached, I mean, you tell me, you played all year round. I mean, talk about, you played at a young age. You're 3.5 years old when you're first playing soccer.
Well, it's funny just how much it's changed because I started when I was a little older, I guess. Nowadays it would be considered like ancient. I was 6. And back then that was when people started playing. And I just always really loved it. My brother was 18 months younger than me, and he got really into it and became like this really just stud player and was like traveling over to Europe and stuff and doing these Corver
Wow.
videos. Yeah, he was really good. And so he and I would go out in the backyard every day and have these 1v1 battles and just
Wow.
oh yeah. So the reason why I was so into it was because my brother was so good at it and I wanted to do anything that he did. And we would just have these competitions. And so we were actually making each other better every single day. You know, you don't get too many opportunities to be able to have just like those 1v1 situations. And since he was so good with the ball, that meant he was keeping away from me. So I was like, just trying to get away from him. Hence why I would later in life become a defender probably.
Right? I mean, that's perfect. Oh my God.
Yeah. So, but we just loved it. We loved it. We loved going to tournaments. It didn't matter how hot it was. There was never a day, just for myself, especially, that I didn't love playing. Like even till the day that I retired.
Really?
Yeah.
And you played all year round, right? I mean, when you're young, what was it like? Because I know it's blown up now, and now it's become a 365 day a year thing. What was it like for you?
I think it's too much now. I do. I think it's too much to ask of kids. It should be fun. And a lot of times it can still be fun. It depends on the coach. And I don't think that, winning is everything. I think that you do learn a lot from losing also. So I think if coaches just can continue to let kids enjoy it. And obviously you're hoping that they're always going to go out there and give their best, right? Because that's what it takes to play at the highest level and to continue to have success. So putting them in the right position. I actually started coaching both my kids.
Really?
Yes. And I said that I never would. But then, of course, they asked. And I will say that was one of the coolest things. But it was also one of the hardest things because, even I, as a coach, I want to teach them so many things.
Right.
I have all these things that I've learned that I want to pass along to them. But it's about still making it fun. I even kind of found myself getting caught up in the seriousness of trying to teach them, and I wanted them to listen. And I think I took the fun away from it. And luckily I was able to catch myself and go, you know what? You love soccer because you had fun. You need to make this a fun environment for them where they can still learn, but they're doing it and enjoying themselves. And so even for me, it was a really huge lesson to learn. And one where I had to take a step back and just remember why we play sports.
What's the balance? I mean, when you become mom coach and, the idea of imparting all that wisdom that you learn, what is the line that I know it's a feel thing, but what is the kind of line where that you can impart this wisdom and make them a much, much better player? How do you catch yourself? I mean, I think that balance is really interesting because I think anybody that knows a little bit about a game or a sport, you almost want to kind of catch yourself, but you also want to make sure, look, they're not the adult. It's your job to teach them.
Right. I think it's, first of all, from a young age, it's about teaching them the basics so that they can do things properly, technique and just learning the game. So I think that's usually how I try to start. And then if kids are more interested they'll ask you questions. If they want to know more, then that's when you're you try to share things with them. But I think sometimes it can be overload, and I have to keep reminding myself that when you're really young, there's only so much that you can retain, right? So it's about sprinkling little things here and there. And it's baby steps, right? It's building blocks. So it has been fun. It has been challenging for sure. But, I think I just want them to really just have an amazing experience and continue to enjoy playing.
Having played for, top coaches in the world, in the country, how do you model yourself and how do you wear both hats of mom and coach, right? Clean up your room versus on the field where you're telling them what to do.
I mean, I'm not kidding. It's hard. It's hard coaching your own kids because I do sometimes find that I'm a little bit harder on my own kids.
Yeah.
I expect more of them. And so it's that fine line and that balance between like treating them the same way that you would treat anybody else. It's hard, like really hard. And sometimes I think when I'm not thinking about it, then I might, bark at Connor and, say, you have to do this. But then I just have to remind myself, like, he's just like everybody else and he wants to have a good time. Like, so I think that sometimes it takes a little bit of extra reminding and awareness on my part. So I can just continue to be consistent.
Go back to your journey. So here you are playing against your brother, and what girls today have, you didn't have. You didn't have, anything near the amount of resources that kids today have.
Yeah, no, the game it's grown so much and it's so exciting to see. But I still think when it all comes down to it, it's the same as when I was growing up. The things that really should matter. I think it's very basic from the very beginning and what their needs are. And we have to just continue to focus on that. I think when you become more elite and you move up in the ranks, then those things that you're talking about that are so much different that I didn't have back then, like that's when that really plays in a major role and makes a big difference for these athletes and their longevity and, leveling up in a way.
Yeah, I mean, think about the concept of these elite select teams, the trainers, the specialty trainers. What's your belief in all that? Like especially for parents who may have a young athlete who's got some ability. What advice would you give?
So I think it's great to have access to those things. Doesn't mean that you always have to use them, but I mean, they're there if you need them. I never had those things growing up. So and thinking back on it, like there was times where I did need those things and I didn't have that opportunity. I did have a lot of injuries throughout my playing career. It would have been nice to have like a trainer there to kind of like help me through. Instead of figuring out on your own. I also think that kids a lot of times don't know how to push themselves and sometimes don't know when to take breaks. So trainers are great because their job is to overlook and know what to do in that from that perspective. So I think it is a really nice tool to be able to take advantage of.
Did you have travel at when you played?
Mm-hmm. I started playing in 3rd grade, just like my son.
Right.
So it's no different. But the ask is a lot more. I want to say we were seasonal because I'm from Cincinnati, and
right.
we would only play in the summer and fall. I think, if I can remember correctly. Like winters, nothing. Maybe you could go play indoor if you wanted, but it wasn't like a full year thing. And maybe you would practice like twice a week. That's it. Never. I see some kids that now it's like they're traveling every single weekend. They're getting on planes or going places. That was like a rarity back when I was growing up. You could drive everywhere. You still had great competition locally, but now I see a lot of times they're getting on planes and they're going to these tournaments, which is a lot, not only for the kids, but
yes,
a lot for the parents too. It's a lot for the parents.
I mean, financially, imagine, listen, if you're everyday people, you have a job, you have responsibilities, financial obligations, and that's a big ask. Like, let's go play a tournament in Chicago or Florida, or I mean, it's expensive. Hotels, plane tickets, everything.
I think it's out of control. If you ask me, I think it's nuts, and I don't think it's necessary. I think that teams should just go back and doing things like regionally, locally. There's, unless you're from somewhere in the middle of nowhere that just doesn't have good competition, like then maybe you travel a little bit more. But I don't think everybody should be traveling all over the country right now. I mean, plus that's kind of one of the nice things about if you have an opportunity to play in college, then you do that.
Right. Or even
So
high school. I mean, high school, once you get to a good well, explain to me the soccer world when it comes to high school and the select teams. I guess that's a big difference, right?
yeah, so club in select, that is not obviously like that's on your own and where you travel. And it's usually a higher level. I will say that my high school, I went to an all girls Catholic high school in Cincinnati, and we were really good at all sports. And so I did, even through playing high school soccer, I mean, I was playing at a really high level. So pretty much that was a big chunk of my year, right? Through club and high school where I was playing really high quality soccer. And I was really fortunate from that perspective. Nowadays, it's a lot of girls don't play high school or for their schools because the level's not as high. And I think because the ask of what they need for their club teams is so high that they can't do both. And I think that's kind of unfortunate too, because I think there's something to be said about playing for your school team, the pride, the pep rally,
Yeah.
friendships and things like that. So I think it's great that these kids are so dedicated, but I also feel like they don't have a choice. So that's the unfortunate part.
I'm very excited tonight because Phillies fans will know, all of Major League Baseball will know our next guest. He is baseball lineage. He's one of the greatest. Tom Flash Gordon is our guest, and Flash is now working with Perfect Game. Good evening, Flash. Good to see you, buddy. You look great.
Well, man, I try. I get to move around a good bit with these youngsters, so I just try to make sure that number one, I can keep up. Number two, there's times where I can throw and I can have some fun with them, and they give me an opportunity to, still feel like I can pitch a baseball and stay healthy. But it's a blessing being able to see these young kids and their talents. But thank you so much for having me on the show.
I love the fact that you have this passion for youth sports, and basically that's what this podcast is about, which is to kind of guide parents, talk about it, and you have this. Not only were you a great major league pitcher, your two sons played. I mean, you've been sports dad, big leaguer. I mean, you've done it all, and now you're helping the next generation.
Yeah, and I tell you, it feels so good because you're in a space with kids that you want to see do very well. There's no greater stage for amateur baseball than the Perfect Game stage that we set for these young men to get out there and play, and young women. We do softball too at the same time. They get an opportunity to play the game that they love, and then usually we'll have ex-major league guys somewhere close to them to give them some type of information, or if they need a little instruction, or sometimes even a little development. It's been a great organization to be in, because my son Nicholas started in it. D played a little bit in it. However, that's all they talked about is that they'll appreciate the competition, and I think that's what's so good about PG is the competition there, the stage is there, and who doesn't want to play in front of all the scouts in baseball so you can finally be drafted.
That's right.
And don't forget, our Yo Kids Sports podcast is presented by Primo Hoagies. Listen, know what I've always said for years and years and years. It's not just a hoagie, it's a Primo. And this fall, whether you're tailgating, football, soccer, it's youth, you name it, make sure you got your Primo Hoagie party tray. Nothing like it for the big game. And speaking of football and the big game, this fall we're giving away a trip to Vegas to see the very big game to one very lucky, very deserving coach. So if you know a youth coach that you think deserves recognition for their outstanding dedication and passion, make your nominations today. PrimoHoagies.com. You can go directly mvc.primohoagies.com. Our most valuable coach promotion here at Primos. I love it. We got to shine some love, give some love to these youth coaches that spend their time, many of whom just getting an earful and no compensation. So they're the best. Nominate your favorite coach. Again, it's the Primo Hoagies most valuable coach contest. I love it. I think it's great. And who knows, maybe they'll get to see the birds at the big game. Wouldn't that be something?
It's great because, PG does tournaments all ages. In fact, I was just at an 11U tournament in South Jersey this past weekend. My Massimo played in the Perfect Game tournament, and it was great. Like, just the kids everywhere, and it was the atmosphere. It just feels like ball, it's just great about it.
And it does. That's the key. It's almost like coming together for a great big family reunion. The kids, they know each other, but some of them don't see each other all year long. And then they're so elated about that tournament that they're actually being in with some guys that they've known, they faced and played against. And they're learning that the competition level at a Perfect Game event is nothing compares to it. So you if you're the best player and you believe you can play, you can get out there and showcase your talents in front of so many thousands of people on these events. I mean, we're doing a really good job, and I'm grateful. First of all, I'm very grateful that I get an opportunity to work alongside Rick Thurman, my agent for a long time, but also to Rob Ponder. These guys, these people that make a difference in the youth sports arena. With Greg, who's always been instrumental to me. We started a relationship my first year or so, maybe first month in Philadelphia, but look where the relationship have gone. And I think baseball is just definitely a huge, as you want to call it, family reunion for a lot of players and ex-players like myself.
What's fun is that this is so different. I mean, especially when you were growing up, even to when, your kids, especially D, a lot of the stuff that's going on now with Perfect Game does and some of the tournaments, I mean, that didn't exist back when you were coming up.
Absolutely. I think if there was something more like this in the game, I could tell you we'll probably be a lot better baseball players. But hey, back in the 70s, 80s, 60s, whatever you call it, I wasn't back in the 60s, but the 80s and 90s, that was some, heck of a baseball. You take a guy like Brett Saberhagen, one of the youngest talents to win a Cy Young in '85, and I think he was 20. So, I mean, you look at that. I played with George Bretts and the likes of him, and some of the greatest players that ever played in Kansas City. But one of the greatest athletes to ever play was Bo Jackson. So it's just been such a remarkable journey for me. And to get an opportunity to work alongside some of the guys with Sirius XM Radio, did some stuff with ESPN a little bit and some Fox stuff. It's been good. So it gives me an opportunity to kind of go back from being around these actual media moguls and say, hey, youngsters, this is what they're looking for. When I get a chance to be around, top scouts and general managers and player development guys, they let you know right away. If they feel like you have a chance of being able to get word out there, but also develop some young minds and some young talent, they give me a lot of information to help. And that's been really key for me.
What drew you to the amateur level and to the youth level in particular?
Well, my son Nicholas was playing at the age of 8. Started with Perfect Game around the age of 8, and of course he was playing with the Chet Lemon Juice. Good organization, Chet, Detroit, great player.
Sure.
But then he had this team that he started up in Eustis, Florida, and just a team that was known in the country for being a very good, solid baseball team around. Very good manager, guy that knew the game very well. And so there were times where Nichols would see kids from different states come down and try and make that team because it was just so prominent in travel baseball. So what I did was once Nicholas turned 11 or 12, that's when I started my own Florida Flash baseball program. We got up to rank 6th in the country, in the world, and was doing a great job. I mean, we had the likes of, my son Nicholas as a shortstop, Brandon Rogers, Colorado Rockies as a third baseman. Deacon Lippett was the catcher and he plays now second base for the Los Angeles Dodgers. Juan Hillman, a great pitcher with the Cleveland Indians. Tristan McKenzie with Cleveland Indians. We had Nick Longy, who was with the Boston Red Sox for a mighty long time. And we had a host of players. Like I said, I think I mentioned Keyshawn Lynch, Keyshawn played with Arizona Diamondbacks. But what a host of players that made that organization and that team for us so much, gave us so much, proudness of it, but also too just excitement to know that we were playing And teams are starting to take notice of a really good baseball team that we were actually developing.
Can you tell at that age, not that they're going to make the show, but that there is something special, something elite about a kid at that age? I mean, it's even before they go through puberty.
Yeah, well, I tell you, in every case, especially when you're dealing with sports, usually there's that best player, best 3, 4, 5 players, and those guys stick out. They stick out. I mean, you find them anywhere you go, you find them. I think the one common thing today is that, there's so many guys that aren't drafted in the first, second round that goes into Major League Baseball, even the NFL and maybe even the NBA. That third, fourth through seventh guy, that third, fourth through 25th guy, like it is in Major League Baseball, that guy's hungry to show that you missed him as a baseball player. So, and I love that because I was drafted 6th by the Kansas City Royals in 1986. And there were a few guys in front of me, but I actually thought those guys played their positions well. I just thought that I was a much better pitcher. So the competition just makes you feel better. It also gives you that opportunity to work along some guys that would challenge you to become a better player. With this, the same setup in regards to travel ball that's what we're trying to do, is give kids the platform to play, evaluate them at the best intent in regards to making sure that they get and understand the rankings. And then from there, when they step on the stage and they're playing against some of the best talent, it's not just one at bat that you have or one batter that you face. We over the long haul would like to see players play full games, get 4 at bats, 5 at bats, whatever the case may be. But we want to see how they play in 40, 50, 60 games. So we really evaluate, we scout, and we think about these kids when they're coming up and how well they played against certain talent and how well they fared against those guys. So the ranking just helped them give us an idea, but also to give us a platform to have for Major League ball clubs on any talent that is coming through Perfect Game
that you can actually track from these young ages. I mean, that's what's pretty cool about it, is that, this database is so vast that kids don't get lost. It's a big country and a lot of kids play ball. And the beauty of what you're talking about is that it does give attention and it gives kids that opportunity to be tracked.
Totally agree. I mean, like I said, I had gone to, when Nicholas was maybe 10 or 11, to a couple of Perfect Game showcases and in tournaments and all of that. And I saw how much better the play was and how much more faster the kids were, a little bit stronger. And I wanted him to adjust to that. And with Nicholas, he did those things. I mean, he was around, like I said, the juice, and he was around Coach Jared Goodwin, who coached with FTB, guys that knew the game of baseball, that helped develop his mind to become a much better baseball player. When I got him home, I tried to make him a better young man at the house, take care of his grades, make sure you check on his little sister when he gets home. He needs to make sure she made it home off the bus. Things in that regard that I kept him responsible with. His baseball, every time he touched the field, he was ready to play. I just wanted to make sure that he stayed on that even keel when it came to his chores and his grades.
Hello. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Yo Kids Sports. Do me a favor and hit the subscribe button right there. And all these incredible guests, like the next one we have on, it helps us get the word out. This is all about youth sports. It helps parents. It helps young athletes. It's all about the good that we can serve with something that we love, which is sports. And as always, we're brought to you by Primo Hoagies. Go to primohoagies.com and check out the most valuable coach competition that we're doing. This is pretty cool, where you could send your own youth coach to the big game. So make sure you check that out. My next guest, and I love him. He's built an incredible program. He's an amazing basketball coach. He's also an incredible teacher to kids, and he does things the right way. Carl Arregale, the coach of Newman Goretti. Coach Carl, we love you. What's happening, Coach Carl?
What's up, man? How you doing?
So,
What
brother,
thing you got going here?
Right off the bat, man, let's just give a moment and talk about what you've built at Newman Goretti. And I mean, the slew of Catholic League titles, the championships. I mean, sending all these kids to colleges to get an education. Can you believe that where you sit right now, 2023?
No, not really. I never thought I would be doing it this long for one. I mean, I thought it was interesting, to give it a shot, when I had the opportunity to interview for the job and become the head coach. But never had, I'm doing it longer, more than half my life now, so it's just been something that was inbred in me though. Like it started back when the grade school I went to, King of Peace, is now closed, but it was your cousin Joey. Your cousin Joey and I we went through grade school together. He's a little older than I am, but he'll tell you it was an amazing place. I mean, it was really tight knit, family oriented, and what they did was they always had, besides the regular teams, they always had this intramurals program that they had. We didn't have enough kids to play football, so we played touch in the schoolyard. But we had the basketball and the baseball that played competitively in the CYO and everything. And then with the intramurals, it involved all the kids. And what happened is, as you got older, you got to coach the younger kids. So it kind of gave you like a little bit of a bug, like to be the coach. Like it was this thing. And then if you made the team, the grade school coach at that point was tough, man. He was tough. He was old school, and he coached you hard. So like I was fortunate enough to make the team when I was in 5th grade. I made the 7th and 8th grade team. I wasn't going to play, but I was good enough. They wanted me to be on the thing just to see how it was. So I got coached hard from when I was like 10 years old, and so it kind of sticks with you. And then you're coaching the thing, and then you kind of always have it in the back of your mind, maybe, and then my dad was a guy that got involved with coaching and stuff like that. So it was one of those things that I was kind of in my mind. And I had, I played for Speedy Morris in high school and at Penn Charter, and it was a great experience. I mean, it took a little getting used to, but it was a great experience. And the way he impacted my life, I always thought like, wow, if I can do that to one kid, it would be pretty neat, it'd be pretty cool, so. And then I went off to college and it wasn't as great. My college career wasn't great. It wasn't, my relationship with the coach wasn't as good and all, but I came back and it was just a happenstance. When I graduated college, I ran into Mike Doyle, who was a friend of mine. We went to high school together. He went to O'Hara. I went to Penn Charter, and we were at a awards banquet together or something. And, we were friendly. And here I run into him just by chance, and he's interviewing for the Newman job at that point, to teach and coach over there. And he asked me, would I be interested, if he got the job? I said, yeah, let's talk. I said, it's definitely something I would be interested in, because he wanted somebody from the neighborhood and all. Because even though I went to Penn Charter, I was a Newman guy. I lived in the neighborhood with all the Newman kids.
And don't forget, our Yo Kids Sports podcast is presented by Primo Hoagies. Listen, know what I've always said for years and years and years. It's not just a hoagie, it's a Primo. And this fall, whether you're tailgating, football, soccer, it's youth, you name it, make sure you got your Primo Hoagie party tray. Nothing like it for the big game. And speaking of football and the big game, this fall we're giving away a trip to Vegas to see the very big game to one very lucky, very deserving coach. So if you know a youth coach that you think deserves recognition for their outstanding dedication and passion, make your nominations today. PrimoHoagies.com. You can go directly mvc.primohoagies.com. Our most valuable coach promotion here at Primos. I love it. We got to shine some love, give some love to these youth coaches that spend their time, many of whom just getting an earful and no compensation. So they're the best. Nominate your favorite coach. Again, it's the Primo Hoagies Most Valuable Coach Contest. I love it. I think it's great. And who knows, maybe they'll get to see the birds at the big game. Wouldn't that be something?
He gets the job, and then he hires me, and then I'm there, and then he leaves after a year because he gets a better teaching job offer in Jersey. And then the JV guy took over, asked me to stay. And then he was there for like 4 years, and then he was going to move on. And then it was just the timing was right then. It wasn't right before. And then I took a shot at it, and here we are. 30,
what year was that? What was your first
I was
year?
31 years ago, man. It was like when I first was my first year as an assistant. This is my 26 years the head coach. And I mean, I didn't think I would. I said, I'll give it a shot. I had no idea how long it would last, if we'd be able to do I had a little bit of a vision. I didn't know if we'd be able to do it, but and then my second year we made the final and we lost, and then my third year we made the final and won, and then it just kind of took off from there.
That's amazing. And, all those Catholic League titles and all those playoffs and all the whole thing. I mean, what an amazing ride. When you step back sometimes, I had this conversation with Jay Wright once, and we were talking about after the second title, when he wins it the second time, and it was how he had finally kind of had a handle on what the program was. Now everything wound up changing, but there was a period of time where the perfect recruits came in, they would stay, and for somebody would go to the NBA. But like building a program is almost like you need certain parts to keep the thing churning. Is that kind of similar, even though it's high school?
Oh yeah, no, high school, it's gotten harder, to be honest with you, because of the climate of the sport. I mean, our thing was we would have a good group and we'd have a good group waiting, and we'd have kids that would wait a year or two, and develop behind the stars or the better players that we have, and then they would get their turn, and there was always a next group that they would be handing it off to. And what that allowed us to do is to create a culture that was conducive to winning, and we would always have the next group in line, and and now it's like it's completely different. It's like the microwave age now. Everybody wants to play right away. I mean, they think if they're not playing as a freshman, they're not going to get recruited. I mean, I've had guys that didn't start until they were seniors. They got Division I scholarships. I mean, so
Right.
But there's so many people that are directing these kids and talking to these kids and giving them bad advice, and basketball is a sport that you don't need anybody else like to get better. You just need a ball and somewhere where you can bounce it, or you can walk to a court, or so it's a sport that anybody could really work at. So the kids that don't have everything, that can't afford the football equipment to play on a football team, or can't
Baseball,
don't have a
yeah,
buddy that they can have
sure.
a catch with them every day, or pitch them BP, or go to the trainer that charges $75 an hour to soft toss so you hit them into the net, and stuff like that. Basketball, you could do it. I mean, you could play with your buddies, you could watch the game a little bit, but now it's evolved into the training situational too, but you don't necessarily need that. So the lower income and inner city kids can really work at it and get good at it. And so and then they just get influenced by so many different people now, and they don't think along the same lines as somebody like maybe myself that has been in it for a long time and likes to cultivate a team and develop and have the guys that play behind a guy. Then you become the rotation guy, then you become the starter. Everybody wants everything really fast now, and and that was going on in college for a while, and now it's kind of changed because of the NIL thing. Kids are staying longer. College basketball is getting old, because they can make more money staying in college than they can after they graduate, because they're not good enough to make it maybe in the pros.